Good afternoon, everyone. If y'all can hear me, can someone send me a message in the chat, please? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Emily King, and I am the program coordinator here at the Advanced School of Politics. Before we get started, I just want to make you aware of some of our upcoming schools. So our first school upcoming is the Campaign Fundraising School. If you really enjoyed today's lecture and want to learn more about all things campaign finance, I highly encourage you to register and apply for this school. It'll take place from May 5th through 7th in Arlington, Virginia, and you can use the QR code on your left to get to the application link. After that, we're going to have our Campaign Leadership College from June 19th through 28th. This will be in Northern Virginia as well. This is our most intense 9-day program designed specifically for campaign managers and those looking to get into the senior level of managing political campaigns. And then finally, we'll also have, alongside the Campaign Leadership College, our Candidate Development School. This is our only program specifically designed for those running for office. So if you or someone you know is running for office, especially in this 2026 cycle, I highly encourage you all to attend. That's going to be in Northern Virginia as well from June 24th through 27th. And you can use all of these QR codes to get to the different application links. And please note that all three of these schools are in person. We offer these schools as in-person only programs, just because that is the best way to give y'all the best experience and the most information that way. All of that being said, let's get into the lecture today. We're joined by Rick Tyler, the director of the Advanced School of Politics. Rick has an extensive background in campaigns and politics. He was the press secretary for former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, notably served as the national spokesperson for Ted Cruz's 2016 presidential campaign. And today, in addition to leading the Advanced School, you can occasionally spot him as a contributor on major news networks. So please welcome me in joining Rick Tyler.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon to those of us on the East Coast. Good morning to everyone else in the U.S. and good evening or good morning to wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining our Advanced School Politics workshop. We're going to talk about the fundraising fundamentals today and basically a comprehensive, I'd say, programmatic overview of how to do successful fundraising. This can be applicable. It's this one, I'm going to talk a lot about campaigns, but a lot of the concepts can also be applied to nonprofits. And the way to think about the difference between the two is campaigns, of course, have a serious deadline, which is election day. So things all are geared toward getting the money at the right time during the campaign. In nonprofits, there is no such deadline, although we need the money as quickly as possible. So we're thinking about more long-term. Of course, when you become an elected official, your fundraising really should take the approach of that of a nonprofit, as an ongoing effort to raise money. If you're a challenger campaign and you don't hold elected office, then your timelines are much shorter. Also, for political party people, parties often raise money as if they're in a campaign, and they really shouldn't be doing that. They should be raising money as if they are a nonprofit, because they, in fact, operate the same way. They have ongoing financial needs, despite what the election cycle is. They may have more needs during the election cycle, but they still have staff and they still have rent and they still have programs that they've got to get accomplished. And so they really should stop treating fundraising around political parties like it's campaign and treat it more as if someone who were running a nonprofit. This is me, or I'd like to say my sketchy path, my sketchy past. I was an NBC political news contributor for about 9 years. I was communications director for Ted Cruz. And as Emily mentioned, I was press secretary for Newt Gingrich. I am the author of the book Still Right, if you're interested in that. I'm currently the director of the Advanced School of Politics here at the Leadership Institute. So let's start out with the basic fundamental. Most people who get fundraising wrong have got this part wrong, and it is the most important part. Well, all the components of fundraising are important, and we're going to talk about that, like your pitch deck, your budget projections, your donor portals. All these things should look competent, and confident, so that you are portraying to the donor that you're a serious organization that's doing serious things, and that you're not an amateur, because donors don't want to give to amateurs. But none of that matters if you get the relationship wrong. And the first mistake that most people make when they're raising money is understanding how to develop that relationship with donors. And I don't just mean major donors that you'll meet, but also with donors that you'll never meet, the donors who are answering your direct mail appeals, the donors who are answering your text message appeals, the donors that are answering your digital advertising appeals. That relationship with those people also matters. And so you've got to cultivate those relationships. And it starts with a mindset, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. So it really is 75% relationships and 25% everything else. So make sure we get the relationship right, and we'll talk about that throughout the presentation. So there are really three pillars to fundraising success. And first is that personal relationship with the donors, even in the donors that you don't meet. People give to people, and people don't give to people they don't like. They give to people that they like, and they give to people that they trust. So if your mission aligns with the donor, but you don't have a good relationship with the donor, you're not likely to get a contribution, even if everything else lines up, which is why you've got to spend a lot of time cultivating and developing that kind of relationship with your audience, particularly major donors, because that personal networking is your greatest asset to fundraising and ongoing fundraising. Beyond that, it's personal credibility. It's your reputation. Your reputation. They're going to Google you. They want to find out about you. And what they find out online or through talking to other people is really going to matter. So make sure yours is a record of integrity, because that is going to matter with fundraisers enormously. Your personal credibility. They are giving to you, right? They trust you. They trust that you're going to take their hard-earned dollars and you're going to turn them into important work that they care about. And so their personal relationship with you and your credibility with them are absolutely fundamental. And the third is the institutional credibility of what you work for, which is why they're going to look at your organization. They're going to see its history. They're going to see who is helping them, who's on the board, and what kind of work they're doing. And so if you have a really sophomoric uh, fundraising site or website and it just doesn't look very good and it doesn't look professional and it's got grammatical errors and it's not well written or well presented or doesn't seem to have a message, that is going to hurt your institutional credibility. Or if you're associated with people who have bad reputations and they're affiliated with your organization, that is going to hurt your institutional credibility. So get these three things right to begin with. Your personal relationship, how are you going to interact with all of your donors, your personal credibility, and your institutional credibility. Now, the ask. Once we establish those three things, we are beginning to think about our ask, and that is where the relationship and the credibility converge. All your preparation comes to a single decisive conversation, and this matters most with major donors, but it also matters with your donors that you're writing to, either through direct mail or through digital advertising or text messaging or email. If you don't like asking for money, get out of the business. Or better yet, just get over it. But because if you can't ask for money in the political world, then you just can't be a candidate. You're not going to be a successful candidate asking for money. And some people are thinking, well, I guess I can't be a good candidate. I don't like asking for money. I'm asking you to change your mind. People are looking to give money. They want to give money. They want to support you and what you represent and the change that you represent and the change that you want to bring for our nation, for your community, for your state. They want to give money, and you're the conduit to help them do that. They are happy to give money, and they will be happy to continue giving money. And what is more fun than going to a mailbox that's full of checks to help with your cause or your campaign? So really think about, how can I work on changing my attitude about asking people for money? I'll tell you one of the biggest hangups people have is they think, oh, well, I don't like asking money. And the reason they don't is because they think it's for them. Well, it's not for you. The money's not going in your bank account. You're not getting rich from asking money. You're not a beggar on the street asking for money for your subsistence. You're asking for something bigger than yourself, bigger than them. And there are plenty of donors who want to do that. So the discomfort comes because people are amateurs about it. But then once they build a relationship with the donor, it is a lot easier. And I apologize for the foreign letters on the screen. I'm not sure what those say or even if they're coherent to anybody. Um, so we'll fix that. They donors want to be asked. They want to be part of something meaningful, whether it's your campaign or whether you're a nonprofit. And so when you develop the relationship, it's so much easier to confidently and authentically ask because you have a relationship with somebody. And that's where you really need to take the time and realize that it's not an imposition, it's really an invitation. You're asking someone to join something. And who doesn't like to get an invitation to something important? And you're giving them a pathway. Donors are looking for a pathway to to participate in something meaningful. And if your campaign is serious and it has a message and it wants to do something, or your nonprofit likewise, then donors are looking for you and they're waiting for you to ask. All you need to do is to develop that relationship. And once you have that relationship, the ask becomes a lot easier. I want to walk through some political data that's actually quite interesting and it all makes sense to you. That donors are out there. Some people want to say, well, there just aren't enough donors or they don't exist. No, 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 they exist. There's a lot of donors out there. And you'll notice when you get to two ends of the self-identified political spectrum between strong liberals, where donations range at about 28 to 32%. In other words, total donors who give to political causes are 28 to 32% of them are liberals. So let's say somewhere around 30%. And then as you get to moderate or weak liberals, it gets a little weaker. So it's 18 to 22%. And now look at the centrist moderates. They're giving the least amount of money. They make up the least amount of money that goes to political campaigns and political causes. This is why the language in fundraising is driven, shall I say, to two extremes, because you got to have a message. If you're a liberal, you got to have a message for a liberal because they make up most of the majority. They make up, let's say a significant portion of the liberals' fundraising. It is also true on the right, where strong conservatives, a little weaker than the liberals, but between 25 and 30% of strong conservatives want and do give to political causes. So the money's there. And again, it's a little weaker when you get to more the weak conservatives and on the moderates. Again, the centrists give the least. But my overall point is there is a lot of money out there. It's just identifying, targeting, and having a message for those people who want to give money to political causes or candidates. Now, when we're developing that relationship, we really need to know the potential donor. And I also often use this analogy. It's sort of a little like dating, right? You want to get to know the person you're dating, and you want to talk about their interests. You want to get them interested in you and what you're doing, and you do this any number of ways to flatter them, to show them that you're interested in what they think. And this all is very simple. It's just comes across, it needs to come across, it needs to be genuine. Too often fundraisers think this is just transactional. I'll ask for the money, and if they want to give, they'll give, and if they don't, they don't. Wrong. They want to give to you, but they got to like you, they got to trust you, they got to feel like your beliefs and your cause and what you're doing align. So the first thing you want to do is get some biographical information about, now I'm talking about major donors here, personal history, how old are they, what's their business background, where did they grow up, what was their lifestyle like, how did they get to to the business that they're in? How do they become successful? Where do they go to school? All of these things will give you a lot of insight into a donor, who they are, and all of that matters in how you're going to connect with them. The second is for political background, but you can apply this to nonprofits. Like, what is their belief system? What is their background? What do they want to support? What do they want to change? What do they want to help? And if these things align, then you're halfway there. If you have a project to save starving people in Africa, and the donor says, well, I'm not interested in that. It doesn't matter how much you talk about starving people in Africa, they are not going to give to you. You see, your causes don't align. So you've got to figure out, what are they interested in giving to? Who have they given to before? You see that under giving history. What groups have they supported? If you can find out how much they have given and when, that's going to give you an idea of what kind of donor they are, what they like to support, and will help you shape the language in your discussions with them. So biographical information, political background, and their giving history will give you a lot of information about the donor, what they're interested in, and how they need to be asked. Now, some donors have different personalities. Type A personalities, CEO types. You need to get to the point. What is it you want? What are you going to do with it? And how effective will it be? Other donors are not like that at all. They want to talk about kids and sports and the latest political news, and they really want to do a lot of talking before you actually get to the point. You really got to be able to read donors to find out what kind of personality they are to make your most effective ask. So you got to know the donor with deeper research. You got to understand who are they connected to. What organizations are they connected to? And do you know someone in those organizations? Can someone make an introduction to you? Because someone who says, Mr. Smith, you should really meet with Rick Tyler. He's really working in here. And can I set up a meeting? Can I introduce you to him? That's going to make a big, huge difference as opposed to you just cold calling them. If there's someone who can give you the imprimatur of their trust, who already has a relationship with the donor, well, then you're halfway there to breaking down the ice barriers that sometimes get erected, because donors know you're going to ask for money, but they want to know how they're going to be treated, and they want to know that you're a serious person, and they want to know that their money is actually going to do good. So that's all in building that relationship. No special subjects. What are topics that we should avoid with this donor? What are the topics that we really would like to get into? And most asks begin, as in politics, by listening. God gave you two ears and one mouth, so you probably do at least twice as much listening as you do asking. And when you ask the right questions and listen, you can unlock the donor, and they'll do a lot of talking, and they'll give you a lot of information. And you really haven't said much of anything. You're just asking the right questions. You're genuinely curious about them and what they want to accomplish and what they want to do. So before you ask, you should really prepare. This is practicing, studying, understanding thoroughly what it is you're going to present to the donor. Is it coherent? So you have to have a compelling narrative. Why are you running, or what cause are you trying to help with? What are you trying to change? And why should the donor care about it? Now, if you've done your research on the donor, you would already know that they care about conservatives. They care about conservative policies. They care about tax cuts. They care about all kinds of different things. And if you know those things, then you can develop that compelling narrative that fits into the things that they really care about. Two, your online presence. Make sure your website looks professional, that it's grammatically correct, that it's easy to read, that doesn't look like a hostage ransom note or a manifesto, that it really has good, compelling information, again, that the donor is interested in. You're speaking to the donor. They are going to Google you. They're going to look you up. They're going to see what you're doing and if you're real. And if your online presence reflects that you're real, and reflects their language, looks professional, then you're much more likely to get that meeting. If you are going to go to a donor meeting and you have a video or PowerPoint or some kind of a presentation, make sure that it works, that it looks really professional, it looks good, because professionalism reinforces the donor's confidence that they're giving to someone who really knows what they're doing. And if it looks slapdash or things are not right in the presentation, it will undermine your ability to present yourself in a confident way. Always leave handouts. Handouts reinforce the narrative that you've already spoken verbally, and it gives them a chance to further digest and to inculcate what you have already told them. So make sure your narrative is the same as your handout, or should I say the handout reflects what you've said in your pitch, in your narrative, so they can really reflect on it and feel good about what they're giving to. It also gives them a way to find out more information, to show that you're professional, to remind them that they really do want to give or at least make a decision about giving, and then have a budget and some clear backup of your financial goals, what you want to accomplish, what the money is going to be used for. They want to know that their money is going to be used effectively. So when you're very specific about, with this donation, we intend to do what? Mail X number of thousand donors, or sorry, voters with this particular message. We want to produce a television spot that's going to be really targeted toward these individuals that will make the difference in our race. We're going to knock on 30,000 doors, and we need flyers and we need gas money to help the volunteers get those things out. Those are the things that donors want to know that they're paying for. They don't want to just give to a campaign because you have a goal or that your financial deadline is tomorrow. Now, sometimes those things also work, but they can lead to donor burnout. It's much better if you can give your donors a clear idea of what it is that their donation is specifically going to pay for, and that wouldn't be possible unless they were to give that money. So let's talk about the 5 elements for a successful ask. When these 5 align, you're almost always going to get a yes. And the first we talked about already is a personal relationship. People give to people. They have to trust you and they have to like you. And that's the foundation of the ask. If you don't have a relationship with this person, they don't like you, you're not going to get a donation. Second, cause compatibility. I talked about that a little bit already, is the donor's interest has to align with your mission. So whatever your message is or whatever you're running on, the donor has to be in line with making that happen. Or if you're a nonprofit, whatever your goals are as a nonprofit, the donor has to be interested in that mission. If they're not, then it's a misalignment and they're not going to give. Third is the quality of the presentation. The quality of the presentation reflects how you will run your campaign. You, as a person who has professionalism, has integrity, follows through with what they're going to say, what they say they're going to do, and exudes confidence and acts like a winner. And if you don't have that quality presentation, it's really going to undermine whatever it is. I don't care what great things you want to get done. If you show terrible quality presentation, that's the reflection of how the donor is going to think about your ability to get that done. So make sure that all your presentations are of the highest quality, meaning correct grammar, correct spelling, aesthetically pleasing, easy to read, easy to understand, that your goal is clear, that they know what they're actually contributing to. And then, of course, the timing, the amount. The right amount, the right amount at the right time, and you need to always be specific. Now, sometimes, well, let me say this: most donors are not going to be offended if you ask them for too much money, but they may say, "Oh, gee, that I just couldn't do that right now." Oh, that's fine. Could you do it over the course of 2 years, or could you do half now and half in 6 months? Or I understand. How about could you give and make another ask? Just don't leave with nothing. They want you to ask. Sometimes we ask for the wrong amount. And that's why we want to do our research. What are they used to giving? I once asked for a donor for $1 million, and when he said to me, That's the most money I've ever given. Now, he's given $1 million before. I knew that, but he wasn't going to give it that day. I knew that right away. As soon as he said that, I knew that he was going to give more time. Now, over time, he gave 500,000, which I still view as a failure, but 500,000 is a large amount of money. So 1 million wasn't the right ask. I think if we had asked for 500,000 right away or at that moment, I think we would have got it right away. It took a little time and we got it in 250 increments twice. Wonderful that we got that. And so, but you got to give them the right amount. You got to give them a specific amount of money. Don't leave it up to them to guess how much money to give you. You got to tell them how much that you need and what it's going to be used for. And again, sometimes they'll say, look, I got 3 kids in college right now, and one of the oldest is going to graduate, and after that, I'll have a little more flexibility. That's all wonderful. In campaigns, that may not work because we need that money quicker than that. But if you're an elected official, you can go back to that person, or if you're a nonprofit, you could certainly go back to that person and maybe ask them for less money now, and then maybe up the donation later on. And then finally, donors invest in people and organizations that they believe in that are going to be around a long time. Here at the Leadership Institute, we've been around since 1979. That's because of Morton Blackwell, his integrity and his belief in the mission and the way he sells that mission and why it's important. And it is, but also because he is a man of integrity and people trust him and people believe that this organization is going to be around for even longer. And that's why people continue to give because of our institutional credibility and the people who work here. All right, so how do we make the ask? Let's go in these 5 steps. Of course, again, this is sort of like dating, right? Here we go. We got to break the ice, which means your first impression is the most important thing to a donor. Your ability to turn on a smile, to make people feel good about themselves, that you are happy to see them, and you are excited to tell them about what you're doing. Then again, show credibility, presenting the right materials, presenting the right handouts that are all professional, and then we offer proof. This is what we've done in the past. This is how many doors we've knocked on already. These are the items that we've produced, and we want to produce more. But I need to produce these more because we got the door knockers going out next week, and I've got to get them armed with handouts, door knockers, to get the material into the hands of the voters, which is why I'm asking you today, Mr. Smith, to give your donation so I can get that money going to the printer so we can get these things print. And then finally, I need this amount. This is how much it will cost. And then be quiet. Stop talking. Don't talk yourself out of the donation. Once you have made the ask for a specific amount, wait for them to speak. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes donors know this game and they will wait a long time, which can get really uncomfortable, but they will respond. They really do want to give the money. They'll tell you either they're going to give the money or they're going to raise an objection, and then we have to go back and answer the objection. Any salesperson knows this. We ask for the sale and they're not quite sure. Well, then they have an objection. Is it the price? Is it the color of the car? Is it, what is it that is keeping you from buying it today? Well, I'm not sure I can get financing. Well, let me help you with that. So we're looking for that. If they say no, then we got to go back, find what the objection is, and then answer that objection. So building on successful fundraising programs, the difference between campaigns that run out of money and those that have resources through election day is always the same. And that is, we want to think about our fundraising as programmatic. And what is it that we are offering that the donors are going to be paying for, and what is it they're going to get for their money. So we're building a layered program. That's what I'm talking about. Talk about programmatic fundraising. I'm sure most people online listening to my voice now have gotten, sort of threatening text messages. Did you abandon us? I'm crossing your name off the list. I'm going to the chairman right now, and he wants to know if you're going to give the money. I will tell you they do that because it works, but it doesn't work forever. People get wise to the techniques that people use that are very transactional, very kind of threatening or shame-based, and they do work, but they will burn out a list, and that's not what we want to do. We want to get a donor and keep that donor for as long as possible, maybe for the rest of their lives. And we do that by respecting the donor. We do that by serving the donor. We do that by keeping the donor informed and motivated to keep giving. Threats might work short term or shaming might work short term, but it doesn't last long. And you will burn through your list. So resist it. Now, there are times to say, I really could use your donation today. But have good reasons to do that. Because if you keep doing it, people become wise to it and they'll just feel like they're an ATM machine. You need money, I give money, and then you need more money. And that's not the relationship the donor wants. They want to give money, but they want to feel there's gratitude, that they're making a difference, and they need to be communicated to more than just, can you give me more money? You've all seen this donor pyramid, I'm sure, in some way or another. We show it here at LI an awful lot because it really helps to visualize how a layered different levels of donations and how you can build a fundraising program programmatically from smaller donors to major donors. And the reason the base with direct mail response to smaller donors, these are donors that might give 5, 10, 15, $25, right up to about $100. It depends on your list and what kind of a race you're running, whether what you would qualify or classify as a small donor. But that's generally, two-digit numbers. But there's a lot of them. And so while you can't call them all or you can't take them all to lunch, you do have to keep corresponding with them and keep them motivated and let them know how appreciated they are, what their money is going toward, and keep them giving money in small increments. Now, the next level up are people who are just not going to respond to a direct mail piece. They're just going to throw it away. They're never going to write a check. They will, however, give more money if they get to go to an event, if they get to do something, like if they get, what I call the rubber chicken dinner. And if you give them the rubber chicken dinner and they get to socialize with other people who are like-minded and they can have a really good time, and you are good at pulling off an event that people have fun at, that's informative, that makes them feel like they're on the inside, and show them a really good time, whether it's a breakfast or a lunch or dinner or just a cocktail hour, it doesn't matter. Just show them a good time, tell them how much you appreciate them. They're more than willing to give the money, but they do want to go to events. Then you have major donors. Major donors will pay you not to go to the event. I kid a little bit, but there is some truth in that. Major donors, what they really want is access. They want to be able to call the candidate. They want to have influence on the candidate, and particularly if they get elected, they want to be able to influence the candidate or the elected official in terms of, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but sometimes major donors work in industries. They're smart people, and they know things that the average politician doesn't. And so sometimes they give them good information. Is in their self-interest? Of course. But the candidate, the elected official has to weigh out what they're hearing from major donors. But the major donor wants to at least be able to pick up the phone, get through to the elected official, and make their pitch. And that's really what they're buying. They're buying access. They're not. I'm very careful about influence. I don't like the idea the major donor can buy influence. Do they? Yes, of course they do. But if you're a candidate or you're an elected official, be very careful about letting a major donor buy influence. They're buying access. Yes, you will take their calls. Yes, you will hear them out. But you'll have other major donors who are going to be the opposite side of some of your other major donors. And then what are you going to do? So yes, listen to them, hear them out, weigh it out, get wise counsel, make wise decisions about legislation that affects people's lives, and then you'll have to explain to some donors why you're going to vote against their interests. And if you do it carefully and correctly, you won't lose them. Maybe, but sometimes you will. But that's just the way it goes. That's what you signed up for. So we have this pyramid from low donors. There are a lot of them. Social donors, there are fewer of them, but they give more money. And then there are major donors. There are very much fewer of them, and they give a lot of money. And you really want this balanced approach because what you don't want in a campaign or a nonprofit is one person who is giving more than half of, and on a campaign, in most places that would be not legal because there's donor limits. In nonprofits, there's no such thing. But you don't want to be over reliant on major donors. In the same way, you don't want to be over reliant on small donors. Small donors are much more impacted by cyclical events in the economy. For instance, right now, gas prices are very, very expensive, and that's going to affect the low donors' ability to give. It just will, and those donations will go down when costs are high. Uh, they're just not going to have as much money to give. Now, they may be driven to give because they would like someone to lower these prices. That's a pitch you could make. Major donors are not affected by that. They're always going to have money to give. Now, some people ask me, where are these major donors? How do I find them? I don't have a lot of major donors. I will tell you where they are. They're in your low dollars. What do I mean by that? Major donors don't often, a lot of times, major donors start out by giving what they would consider an insignificant amount of money. They might give $25 or even $250, right? And they're not a major donor. What they want to see is, I like this candidate. I'm going to give them money. They haven't asked me for any more money, and I'm going to see how I get treated. And if you treat them right, they could become a $2,500 donor or a maxed out donor. They are there. They're in your small donors. That's where they are. When you're nonprofits, I guarantee you, if you have a big nonprofit, small donor base, there are major donors there. You don't know it yet. You got to go find them. You got to cultivate them. You got to build relationships, and you got to get them to give more money by doing more research. But that's where they are. They generally start as smaller, mid-sized, lower donors. They want to see how they're treated. They want to see how the organization communicates with donors and what they get accomplished. So they're testing the waters. And if you perform, they will become major donors. Okay, so let's start with the small donors. This is our base, which is most of them. They're going to respond to a direct response donor program. Remember, I told you can't call them all and you can't take them all to lunch. So you're going to have to write them somehow. You're going to have to write them either with direct mail or with text messaging or with email or other electronic ways of communicating with these donors so they'll give money through maybe a portal on your website, which has got to look good. Make sure your landing page looks like the page that they launched from. So if you send this beautiful online digital advertisement or email and it looks great and you spend a lot of time on it, and then it goes to some flunky site online, it looks terrible and there's no connection and the language isn't the same, that's going to create a lot of skepticism. Make sure the landing page looks like the page that they just clicked from so people know they got to the right place. And then they feel confident that, yes, I'm in the right place. All of this is saying the same thing and telling me the same thing. So don't just take them to a donor. Fill this out and give me money. Like you got to reinforce on that page the same message they just heard. Thank you so much for agreeing to contribute. Your money is going to go for X, Y, and Z. And just be grateful. Make sure you send them a follow-up email or thanking them. And if it's large enough and you have time to call people, figure out how many of these people at some level that you can actually call personally to thank them. Because what we want to do is get donors in the door, get them writing checks, and then get them to keep writing checks and feeling good about. So with a direct response program, it's usually it's going to be issue driven, a lot of political language. Remember back to our charts with the liberals on the left and the conservatives on the right, they react to this kind of language. And so you're going to talk their language in this kind of response to get them to respond. And you can do that online and digital. The online digital is more or less low cost. You get a fast response. And you can reach a lot of people. The response rates are going to be low, but if you are constantly communicating with people, then low response rates can produce quite a bit of money. Direct mail is a high investment, mostly because of the printing and the postage costs. It is a slower response, but it is one of the most reliable ways that you can build loyalty and a consistent donor base. In the digital world, it was predicted in the digital world that direct mail will go by the way of the newspaper, and it hasn't. What it has done is the digital world has made the mailbox more empty, and therefore the things that are in the mailbox get more attention. So when your mailbox is full, you only have so much time to go through it all. When your mailbox is empty and there's only a couple things in there, and one of them is a direct mail appeal, people will pay attention to it and they'll hold it in their hand. You're going to get their attention. The key is to design an envelope that people will open. We do a whole direct mail school on how to do that. Emily talked about the fundraising school we have coming up in a week, an in-person school, and we will walk through all of that with Ian Frith, who works at HSP Direct, one of the greatest mail companies in the world. And how do they do it? He will teach you. So there's a lot to know in how to do direct mail, but direct mail is a little more expensive. You have to really understand how to write a good letter. You got to understand how to format that letter and how to make an appeal to donors. A lot of people resist direct mail, and Richard Viguerie kind of invented it he was called, for the conservative movement. He is, I think Morton coined this phrase, he's a funding father, is what he is. And he taught people that direct mail is a way to fund your organizations and fund your campaigns. And at first it was slow. People weren't used to giving, but giving is a habit. And once you get people in the habit, they will respond. And so here at the Leadership Institute, we do a lot of direct mail, and it is highly successful for us because we have tens of thousands of donors who just give continually because they understand the importance of our work. And then third is telemarketing, which still produces some money. You have to have good lists, you have to have good scripts, and you got to have professional people who do it. Or with so meaning low donors, a lot of phone calls. Save your candidate to make your high donor calls. But here, the low dollar, you would probably hire a telemarketing firm. They would have to have good scripts, good lists of people who are used to giving by phone, and these are three ways to get the low dollar amounts without spending too much money. So with online, you can expect a 10% open rate. If the better your lists and the more you use them, but you're always going to be prospecting. So your list is probably going to be about 10%. If you get to 40%, you're probably not mailing enough. And that's going to result in a less than 1% conversion rate, which sounds just depressing. But if you just keep your program moving forward and you have enough reliable emails, those percentages work at scale. So you'll get 1%, but 1% of thousands and thousands can convert to quite a bit of money. So it's fast, it's mobile friendly, it's secure, it's consistent. You got to have timely messages, and it's just an addition that we've had over the last decade or so, and we did not have it before. And now people are used to giving online. I remember when they weren't used to, even when you could give online, people wouldn't give online. They didn't trust it. But now there's so many more people who will give online routinely. But again, it's got to be presented correctly. It's got to look credible, and you got to have a message. Direct mail program. You should always be in prospect mailing. When you start a direct mail program, you will lose money, but I don't think you're losing money. What do I mean? Well, people often say to me, they say, this mailing is going to cost me $20,000. Yes. And it's only going to return $10,000. Yes. Well, didn't I lose $10,000? No. Why? Teach me the new math, Rick. Well, the new math is you bought a $10,000 asset that will pay $10,000 again and again and again and again. Now, you don't have to be a math major to figure out that you're going to get back your $20,000 investment. You won't get it back the first mailing. But what you're doing is you're building a house file, and that house file will respond at a much higher rate than the prospect mailing. But you should never stop prospecting. Are you going to lose money on prospect mailings? Yes. I have made money on prospect mailing. It is rare. You got to have a good signer and a good letter and a good message and good timing and all the rest of it. And you might make money on a prospect mailing, but the chances are you won't. But that's not what we're doing it for. What we're doing it for is to get a house file. And that house file is people actually give to you. And once they give to you and you treat them right and you thank them and they know what their money's going for and they believe in the cause, they will give money over and over and over and over and over again. We've had donors. I think our Morton has a chart here at LI, and I think the initial 31st donors that gave to LI back in the late 1970s over their lifetime have given over $3 million collectively. Well, that's amazing. 30 donors collectively over these 45 years have given $3 million, right? By the way, if a small donor is giving you $25, but they're giving you, or let's say, let's keep the math easy. Let's say they're giving you $50 every time they write a check. It's always $50. It's a decent amount, but it's would be considered a small donation. And they gave you it every month. Well, didn't that donor just give you 1,100? Yeah, so $1,100 a year. Let's 10, 11, 12. Yeah, $1,100 a year. Now I ask you, is that a major donor or is that a small donor? In my mind, over a year, that's a major donor because somebody else would write you an $1,100 check and you would treat them like gold. And this person's writing $50 checks that add up to $1,100, same amount for the same amount of year. Treat that person like you would someone who, so if you have like a scaled tier recognition for donors, make sure they're on that because they are giving the same amount of money. They're just not doing it all at once. And then, of course, the list quality is everything. You know, I've had people say, well, I'm going to mail the voter list. Oh, please don't. The voter list will not, you'll lose money badly. So don't do that. There are list rentals. There are companies that rent lists. There are mail houses that will get you qualified lists. Nobody wants to, nobody does this professionally wants to mail a bad list because nobody's going to make money. So we've got to have qualified lists. These are people who are used to giving money to like causes. So they will know how to do that. And that quality is everything. Of course, over time, you'll build up your own list and you'll know, but you want to keep adding to that list. And the only way you're going to do that is to keep prospecting. Telemarketing programs, again, experienced call centers, trained staff, the scripts are really important. How people ask for money. This is not really for amateurs. You will waste a lot of time if you try to organize this yourself. I'm not saying it can't be done. It can, but it really has to be professionalized. It has to be really good. The script has to be really good. The people who are making the calls have to be really professional. And they're going to work with high profile campaigns. So if you have a big name like Donald Trump, like some of our senators, some of our House members in the Congress, those names are going to get people to give money in telemarketing. If you don't have a name or you don't have a national brand or even a statewide brand, and you get people to try to call for money, it's probably not going to work. So telemarketing is really for larger campaigns that have high profile and less so with people with low profile or in smaller races. So professionals, they know how to lean into authenticity. They have a script, but they know how to read it where they sound very authentic. But again, authenticity in your whole donor program is really important. Be grateful for everybody who gives you who gives you $5, who gives you $10. Be grateful and really have a heart of gratitude, and that will come through in your whole program when you meet with donors. The next step is social programs. They're a little bit more expensive. It's the best way to do these programs successfully. The best way to do it is to find a major donor who's willing to lend you their showcase house that is designed for entertaining, and they will have it catered for you, and they will invite all their friends. That's the best way to do this. Anytime you can get the venue and the food donated in a high quality setting, that's the best way to success. But there are other ways to do it too. You can do it in law offices during lunch. I love lunches because people have to go back to work, and therefore your time commitment is 60 minutes. And keep it to 60 minutes. Have an agenda, have a program, have a pitch, ask for the money, and you can have very successful, short, professional events in a law office or a real estate office, where again, they donate the food, the venue's donated, you don't spend a lot of money. Or figure out what venues could work for you that you don't have to spend a lot of money. Now, a lot of people, they want to go to a hotel, and that's fine. You can go to a hotel, but hotels are hugely expensive. If you're going to do dinner at a hotel, you're going to pay anywhere from $85 to $120 per meal, just for the meal. No drinks, no appetizers, and then they'll probably charge you for the room also. So you're not going to make any money that way. So you got to negotiate a good venue and try to get as much donated as possible, and then put on a good program. Make sure that people are treated well. Make sure that it's easy to get to, that it's at the right time, that it's not that people can get there from work or have an opportunity to go home and then get changed and then go to the event or whatever. Just make sure that you make it really think it through. How am I going to get the most people to come to this event? And is there a market for it? Now, in New York City, the tolerance for driving long distances is really short, but in Montana, people are willing to drive an hour to get to an event. It all depends on the community. And once you establish an event, then you can really do one year after year after year if it's successful. But if you want to do a big gala event out of the box and you've never done it before, it's not likely to be successful. So I would scale down, do much smaller events. And once you get a sort of a repertoire or a loyal donors who come to those events, then you can invite them all to a big event. But don't start out with a big event. Then so in the social donor program, we got to have, again, a strong venue, VIP guests. You do a tiered event, smaller for the larger donors, larger for the smaller donors. If you have a VIP speaker, maybe there's a photo line. They can get their photo made with that person. There's a cocktail hour for that group separately from everyone else. But you want to make it a really memorable experience. And you want someone in charge of this event who understands hospitality and how to make people feel important and welcome. It doesn't matter if they're, a donor who paid $100 because that's what they could afford, and then somebody else who's sponsoring a whole table at $10,000. You want to make everybody feel welcome to that event. You want to have a finance committee, and the idea with larger events is you're not selling individual tickets, you're selling tables and you're selling sponsorships. And in fact, you shouldn't even allow people to buy individual tickets until you have sold a sufficient number of sponsorships and tables. And you can offer benefits for the people who give a lot of money. They can have their name in the brochure. They can be recognized in the program. They can have signs. They can put their name on the screen. They can get a shout out from the MC or the VIP. Recognizing them and their generosity for this event and supporting the candidacy or the cause. So just make sure you really think all these things through, because you want people to say, that was a great event. I can't wait till they do it again next year. And next year, I'm going to buy a table. Or next year, I'm going to get VIP. I'm going to save up and buy the VIP access because that looked really special. Major donors are a little different. Major donors, we got to spend a lot. They take the most time. It's actually cheapest to get money from a major donor because you're not doing a mail program or telemarketing or doing a programmatic digital campaign. The most you're going to spend is maybe you'll take them to coffee, or maybe you'll take them to dinner, or something like that. And it's the least expensive way, but it returns the most money. What it will cost you is time. You'll have to spend the most time meeting with donors, doing your research, creating the right pitch. And again, it's the personal relationship. So don't put these people on your mass, mailing list. Don't put them on your text. This is one-on-one. If they ever feel like they're getting, an automated pitch, they're out. They want to know that somebody is looking out for them, taking care of them, and has a relationship with that major donor. So there's a lot of care and feeding for the major donors. And once they give, we want to keep them giving, which is why we got to make them part of our team, give them updates, making sure they know what's going on, listen to them, and really just keep cultivating that relationship and finding more reasons that they should give, and they should give more. So it is really the direct personal asks and by either the candidate, who hopefully is a good fundraiser. As I said, if you don't like raising money, you're in the wrong business. You need to be able to raise money, and I want to make it fun. You really need to change your attitude about if you don't like raising money. Raising money is fun. You meet really important people, and they love to give to you, and you don't have to feel bad about it at all. So you're creating meaningful relationships with the candidate and people who are important. And you'll develop those great relationships, and they'll want to give you money. So major donors, again, they want access, they want a sense of exclusivity or insider status, and they follow the herd. If once they see that other major donors are giving your campaign, they will want to get on board. So you got to get one-on-one meetings with them. That works exceptionally well. Sometimes a phone call will do, but mostly it is going to visit them, either in their home or in their office. In the home is the best because there are a lot of ways to make conversation around someone's home about their home. You talk about their kids, you can talk about how long they've lived there, you can talk about all kinds of things, the artwork they've collected or their hunting trophy collection, whatever it is. There's lots of ways to build a relationship inside of a candidate's donor's home. So that's the best. The second best would be their office. Third best would be their restaurant. The restaurant's hard because you're going to get interrupted for ordering the meal and all this. It's just better to have a more intimate setting, somewhere the donor lives or works. So, as I mentioned before, what we're trying to do with the donor pyramid is to get everybody to give to their maximum potential. So with direct response, we're going to try to keep moving donors up. Every time we're going to ask for just a little bit more money, to get them to see what their level is. If they can't give more money, they won't. And then we just keep them at that level. But if you keep asking for more money and they keep giving more money, then they obviously have the potential to give more money. And then you've got to build in more things for them to understand, or more contact, until maybe they will come to a social dinner. Maybe they didn't want to go or didn't know about them. And now all of a sudden, oh, you have a dinner, I'd like to go to that. And they're willing to pay, instead of the $25 that they're giving, they'll be willing to pay $250. And then you find out, they're capable of giving much more. And then we want to be able to move them to the major donor program. So we're constantly cultivating, we're constantly prospecting, getting people into this, what I call a virtuous circle, and then upping them and upgrading them and getting them to their maximum capability. We're grateful to all of them, but we want to get everybody to their maximum level of capability of giving. In the political world, we at least want to get the major donors to max out, or to give the absolute limit. And some places don't have limits. Like here in Virginia, we don't have political limit. We don't have campaign limits. So you give as much money you want to state candidates, not federal, but state candidates. So let me wrap this all up with 8 rules of fundraising. And if you memorize these rules and stick to them, you'll do really well, and you'll have a ball raising money. The first is fundraising is 75% relationships. People give to people. So the human connection will close the deal 75% of the time. All the rest reinforces that relationship. So make sure all the rest is good and professional and presentable, but make sure that relationship is right. 2, it's always a good time to raise money. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to raise money. People will say if they can't give money, but you have to create the excitement. You have to create the urgency for people to give and why they should give now. Build donor programs at every level. Don't rely on just the major donors. Don't rely on just the low dollar donors. Make sure you have an entry level for everybody to make sure they're giving as much as they can and give them what they want in return for that money. Major donors, it's access. So with lower donors, they just want to be feel like you're down for the cause and you're actually moving the ball down the field and not just some politician who's just collecting money and doing nothing. So do something, move the ball down the field, they'll keep giving to you. Systems raise more money, repeatable processes. So put people that, once people are prospected, then what happens to them? They give money, then what happens to them? How are we going to upgrade them? How do you build a systematic, programmatic approach that, as I say, moves people up to their highest level as quickly as possible? Make sure everything around you leads to credibility, leads to success. Surround yourself with credible people, conduct yourself with integrity, conduct your fundraising with integrity, make sure that everything has a quality feel to it and that is professional. Offer a shared vision, reframe the ask as an invitation to be part of something that matters, not just, can you donate $100? I know these things really are important to you as they are to me, which is why I'm running. And with your help, I can win this campaign so that we can have more freedom or we can have a better education for our kids. Whatever your issue is, just make sure you offer that shared vision so they know that giving lends to that shared vision. Um, Build around milestones. So we do have deadlines and they create momentum and urgency. Like I do have a filing deadline. And I am so grateful for your donations. And I wouldn't be asking you now, except they're going to report how much I raised. And if I can show that I've raised a lot of money, we'll get some momentum in this campaign. Or I need to get 20,000 more doors knocked, but I'm going to need flyers to get into the hands of our volunteers, and I'm going to need to buy pizza for them and gas. And so if you can get me that donation today, I can get those doors knocked over the course of the next 3 weeks, something like that. And then finally, donors trust you with their money. Please honor that trust. Every dollar should be put to work hard. So have some fiscal stewardship. Make sure we're not wasting our money in obvious ways that would offend donors. Make sure we're using that money in the way that they intended. So that is it. That's the foundation of fundraising fundamentals. I apologize for some of the strange characters that you and I saw on the screen today. I'll figure out how that happens. But appreciate you joining us for the Advanced School of Politics workshop. We'll have another one in 2 weeks, so check your email and sign up for that one as well. And we are, as always, grateful. Now go out and do good work. I'm going to turn it back over to Emily.
All right, thank you, Rick. We are over time, so I apologize for that, but let's go with 3 quick questions. If y'all have any questions, please drop them in the chat and I will give them over to Rick. So Gary is asking, is there a small donor strategy that works best for a PAC or nonprofit, focusing on $100 or less per donor?
Well, with the small donors, as I say, you're going to need a lot of them. It depends. If $100 is small for you, then you're going to want to make your base wide, which means you're going to have to get qualified fundraising lists to mail. If you have a small effort, then you could actually handwrite envelopes. You could personalize or write PSs on letters. The more personal you make it, the better it is. And so with a small pack and small donations, you want to make sure that the base is wide. So I would look at direct mail and figure out what lists are out there and what lists that I can mail. Maybe you're only in a certain region, but you can actually get regional lists. And then I would try to build an email list for fundraising, but don't just email them every time with fundraising. Keep them involved programmatically in what you're doing. And then every once in a while, say to keep these programs going, we would want you to be a member. And that's the third thing I was going to mention is build a membership. Say, would you want to be a part of this group? And you can hear the tier levels, sort of silver, platinum, or gold, platinum, and gold, silver, gold, silver, gold, and platinum, I guess is the correct order now. Um, and with these different programs, you get these different benefits and encourage people to give at the level they feel comfortable with, and then deliver on those benefits. Make it feel like they're part of something, important, and then include them and inform them all the time. So I would look at digital, email, website reinforcement. You won't make a lot of money just on your website, but it's a good place to have a portal to collect money. But digital fundraising, text messaging, digital fundraising, and direct mail, and personal solicitation. If your campaign is small enough, and the more personal you make it, the better.
All right, another question we have is what's the best way or a good way to find different conservative businesses that would be willing to host a fundraiser for your candidate, for your PAC, etc.?
Yeah. The best way is really just to network with people and just ask people, oh, you work in the real estate agency. I wondered, you have to build a relationship first, but I wondered, do you know of a small office? And just keep asking people about, office space. And then finally, you might want to ask, would you be willing to host an event for me? But the more you ask and the more you put out the word, people will want to help. And you'll come across the businesses that have those spaces. Not everybody has them. And see if you can, or you could do it at a restaurant with a private room, but again, it can get expensive. Hotels are hard to negotiate with. Restaurants are easier to negotiate with. But the best place to do it is to find uh, a business that's willing to host you, and just make the ask. But the way to get to that ask is join those groups, or attend those groups that meet all the time of business, like the Chamber of Commerce, the Lions Club, all these different, they're all in your community. There's lots of clubs in your community. People go to them and go in and meet those people and find out who has what, and just keep networking. And that's the best way you can find those locations.
All right, one last question. How would you recommend for those receiving or potentially receiving donations from entities that could be perceived as politically damaging?
Politically,
Damaging.
I wouldn't take donations that are going to damage you politically. I would, it's just not worth it. I don't care how much money they're giving. If it's going to hurt your integrity or your reputation, don't take the donation. Don't solicit it. If they want to give you the money, people want to give money for a reason. They want influence. We want to be influenced by bad characters. So you don't have to make a show of it. You just say, well, I just don't want to accept this donation at this time. Thank you very much, and let it go at that. Because in political campaigns, all your donations are public, and people go through them, including your opposition, and they're going to make hay with questionable characters on your donation list. Now, sometimes you will know about it, and that's understandable, and you'll have a plan to respond to that. But I wouldn't knowingly take a donation from somebody who's going to cause controversy for my campaign. You need to get elected, and when you get elected, you can move the ball. And anything that gets in the way of that is not worth it.
All right, thank you, Rick. That was great. So one last time, I just want to make everyone aware of our upcoming schools. So our upcoming schools are the Campaign Fundraising School. Especially if you really enjoyed today's lecture and want to learn more, that's upcoming really soon. Then we have the Campaign Leadership College and the Candidate Development School. Again, all of these are in-person events. We'd love to have you all join us for these. That being said, thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you have a great rest of your day and hope to see everyone at our next workshop in a few weeks.